The snow fell in thick curtains that December evening, transforming the city into a glittering winter wonderland, but the beauty of the streets hid a harsh reality. Beneath the glowing streetlights, life wasn't magical, it was cold, unforgiving, and desperate. Matthew Harrison, CEO of a multi-million-dollar real estate company, was heading to his mansion after another endless day at the office. Wealth, success, and power, he had it all. Yet, the grand house looming behind iron gates had been empty for years, echoing the loneliness he had learned to live with. That's when he saw them, a woman slumped against a stone wall, and beside her, a tiny girl in a red velvet dress clutching a tattered teddy bear. They were frozen, starving, helpless. The child looked up with eyes too serious for her age and whispered the words that would shatter Matthew's carefully controlled world, "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday." In that instant, something inside him broke, or perhaps woke up. One impulsive choice that night would change all of their lives, weaving a story of hope, second chances, and the extraordinary power of human kindness that would bring warmth to the coldest hearts. The snow fell harder as Matthew approached his car, the crunch of his boots muffled by the thick white blanket covering the sidewalks. His mansion was just 2 blocks away, a stately reminder of all he had achieved. Yet, the place felt emptier than ever. 5 years ago, after his divorce, he had bought it for a fresh start. Too big for one, but it had offered him space, isolation, and an excuse to bury himself in work. He barely noticed the cold or the solitude anymore. Then, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Against the stone wall by the iron gates, a woman and a little girl were huddled together, the wind biting through their thin clothes. The woman's lips were tinged blue, her long blonde hair matted with snow. The girl's red velvet dress was almost invisible under a coat that could never have kept her warm. She clutched a tattered teddy bear to her chest. Matthew's first instinct was to keep walking. The city had shelters, social services, charities. He had no obligation to intervene. But when the child looked up at him, eyes wide and pleading, and whispered, "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday," Matthew froze. The woman was barely conscious, shivering violently. Matthew knelt to speak to the girl. "How long have you been out here?" "Since it got dark," she said. "Mommy got sick. Shelters were full. And then, she couldn't walk anymore." Matthew didn't hesitate. "I live in this house," he said softly. "Can I bring you inside? It's warm, and I can help your mommy." The girl's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really?" "Yes, really. But we need to hurry." He lifted the woman, Sarah, into his arms, frighteningly light, ice-cold to the touch, while the little girl, Chloe, walked beside him, teddy bear clutched tightly. The warmth hit them as soon as they crossed the threshold. Mrs. Chen, his housekeeper, immediately brought blankets and warm water, while Matthew called 911. As Sarah was stabilized and taken to the hospital, Chloe stayed by Matthew's side, eating soup for the first time in over 24 hours. He felt something crack in his chest, a mix of anger at the circumstances and a fierce protective instinct. When the social worker insisted that Chloe should go to foster care, Matthew refused. "She stays with me," he said. "I'll take responsibility." The next day, Sarah regained consciousness. Matthew brought Chloe to her bedside. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she embraced her daughter. "You're safe now," he said. "You don't have to worry anymore." Over the following weeks, Matthew's mansion transformed. The house that had been cold and silent now rang with laughter, the chaos of a child, and the warmth of shared meals. Mrs. Chen embraced her new role as a grandmother figure to Chloe, teaching her to cook and telling stories before bed. Sarah's health improved, aided by specialists Matthew connected her with. Eventually, she returned to work as a care coordinator, a role that allowed her to use her expertise without endangering her health. Matthew discovered something he hadn't realized he'd lost: the joy of connection. Dinner became a family ritual, evenings were spent reading bedtime stories, and work ceased to be the sole purpose of his life. His ex-wife had warned him he had become cold, valuing business over humanity. But now, seeing Chloe's laughter and Sarah's cautious smile, Matthew understood what had been missing: purpose beyond profit. Months passed. Matthew founded a charity focused on helping healthcare workers facing housing crises, people like Sarah who had spent their lives helping others until life pushed them into despair. He witnessed firsthand the impact of his wealth when combined with genuine compassion. Lives were being rebuilt, thanks to one decision on a snowy December night. 1 year after that fateful evening, Christmas arrived. Matthew watched Chloe tear through wrapping paper with uncontainable delight, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Sarah sat beside him, hand in hand, and Matthew realized that love had quietly entered his home. Later that day, in the warmth of the kitchen, Matthew finally spoke what had been growing in his heart for months. "Sarah, I'm in love with you," he said. "And I love Chloe like she's my own daughter. Will you marry me? Not because you're grateful or need stability, but because you want the same thing I want: a family, a life together." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. She shook her head in disbelief. "But Matthew, I come with complications, medical issues, past struggles." Matthew took her hands in his. "Life comes with complications. But it also comes with hope. And I fell in love with you because of who you are, real, brave, and unbroken." That evening, Chloe tugged on his coat. "Mommy, are we going to be a family now?" Matthew knelt and smiled. "If you'll let me, yes. I'd be the luckiest dad in the world." Chloe wrapped her tiny arms around him. "Okay," she whispered. "I'd like that." From that night on, their lives were inseparable. The mansion was no longer a symbol of isolation, but of home. Sarah recovered fully, thriving in her new career and regaining independence. Matthew's foundation flourished, giving shelter and dignity to those in need. Together, they forged a family born from chance, courage, and human kindness. Years later, standing outside the foundation's first facility with Sarah and Chloe by his side, Matthew realized that one choice on a snowy night had rewritten their lives. Not wealth, not power, but empathy, courage, and the willingness to open one's door had created a future brighter than any winter's snow. Matthew held Sarah's hand and watched Chloe distribute small gifts to children staying in the transitional housing. His heart was full. The little girl who had asked for food a year ago now held the future in her tiny hands. And Matthew knew that the greatest wealth he had ever acquired was love, family, and the simple knowledge that he had done the right thing. On that snowy December night, Matthew had opened his door. In doing so, he had opened his heart, his home, and ultimately, a new life filled with hope, warmth, and humanity. The end.